The G-Class has always had a beating heart, and in more recent years, a fire-breathing, earth-shaking, fuel-burning V8 heart. It was born in the 70s when the most advanced electrical device you had was a black and white television, and since then it survived wars, it survived deserts, it survived the wild outdoors, and a lot of curved wheels in bougie parking lots. But today, the G-Class is up to its biggest challenge yet. A G-Class without the roar. A G-Class that runs on television fuel. Is the G580 with EQ technology a pretender? Or is it the next step in the story of a legend? We're going to put the new guy up to some challenges to find out.
Like, is it quicker? Does it drive better? Is it easier and cheaper to run? Does it sound better? And lastly, does it look better?
And therefore, which one should you buy?
For this test, we're hooking up the two Gs to a V-Box and testing how quickly they go from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour. The V-Box is incredibly accurate as it measures the true GPS speed of the car and there's no speedo error involved.
Let's set the benchmark. They don't come faster than the G63. It gets a V8, twin turbos, mild hybrid, torque fill. Total output stand at 578 horsepower and 850 Nm of torque. Earth-shaking numbers for earth-shaking performance.
The G63 did 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 4.91 seconds. Now it was time for the G580.
Now is the turn of the G580. Power outputs are almost the same as the G63, 579 bhp, but torque 1164 Nm from its quad motor setup. It may weigh half a ton more, but is it quicker?
The G580 did 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 4.89 seconds. The G580 was actually faster by 0.02 seconds. EVs are known for their performance, and here it runs the V8 super close. The claim time of the G63 is actually 4.4 seconds, and it is possible that it had a slower time here due to lower quality fuel. That said, with just 0.02 seconds between them, there's really no way to tell a difference. This one is neck and neck.
We have to talk about ride and handling because we are Evo India, and that is one of the most important things when it comes to a car from our perspective. And G63, it blows your mind. You don't expect it to be so good, but they've really worked on this new generation car. They've put in this active suspension which works wonders on the way it drives, and it's just phenomenal. Corners, it's brutal. You have so much grip and so much traction. It's unfathomable by body on frame standards. Obviously you can't compare this to something like a Cayenne Turbo because that's a monocoque. Obviously it has inherent advantages, but by body on frame standards this is really good. Big fat chunky sticky tires, 22-inch wheels, that active suspension keeping the roll, the pitch in check, and a really connected driving experience in the corners. And when you combine that with the V8 and the sort of performance that it delivers, this is a shockingly good car in the Benz. Ride quality, again surprising. This is a little firm. It is running, like I said, 22-inch wheels, but again the active suspension does really well to soak up bumps. You know, it does have a little bit of that body on frame shimmy every time you go over a bump, but it soaks up a lot more than what you would expect a G63 to soak up. It's not all over the place, it's not bouncing about out of control. Body control is good over bumps, over long ruts, over just general Indian condition roads, it has some finesse to it, and that is really nice. This may be an SUV with a legacy, something that's born, like I said, in the 70s, but that doesn't mean it is compromising in terms of the way it drives, in terms of the ride quality, in terms of the handling. It is spot on. It's really, really impressive. I also, in one line, want to touch upon off-roading. We're not going off-roading because these cars are very expensive. You've got expensive wheels, expensive tires. You don't want to cut a tire or do anything silly like that. So no off-roading in the Gs today, but insane capability. You've got a low-range gearbox, 2-speed, so you've got a high range for regular driving, low range for off-roading, 3 diff lockers, so you've got insane capability. And when you put all of that together with the V8, it's just unstoppable. If you can handle putting those wheels off-road, I don't want to today. Yep, so that's the G63. Now let's head into the 580 and see what that's like. Back to back with the E580. First impressions, the E580 is a little softer. It doesn't feel like it's set up as firm as the 63, so it just moves a little more. It has more compliance in the suspension. I think the 20s also have something to do with that. 20-inch wheels here, not the 22s over there, with skinnier rubber. It's not as fat as the rubber on that car there. But yes, so a little more comfort dialed in. But in terms of body control, it does have a little more vertical movement as well. You need to remember this does not have the active suspension. It's not as sophisticated in terms of the suspension system as the G63. And that is something you can feel for sure. Outright handling, this isn't the EQG's forte. It's competent by G-Class standards because you've got your weight low down in the floor, and that does give it some advantages. But the active suspension makes a huge difference on the G63, and it just has a lot more in terms of grip and, well, lateral load dealing with ability. So if you chuck this into a corner at the same speed as the G63, you'll find that it understeers a little bit more, and that can hold its line, and that's because it has that much more grip from the wider tires and from the fancy suspension technology. But overall, what stands out over here is the sophistication of the driving experience. You know, there's no noise, no vibrations. It's very sophisticated, very smooth. You've got really good ride comfort, soaks up roads very well. And again, it does have that little body on frame shimmy, but it's nothing that can't be lived with. And it's nothing you won't mind living with, considering this is a G-Wagon. Overall, this runs the G63 very close. It's got different characteristics, more comfort oriented compared to the handling oriented of the G63. But I think more important than anything else is the fact that this is a G-Class, and you still get that imperious sense that you're in a G. You still get the sense that you're towering over everybody on the road, and yeah, this is your kingdom. You're the king. That's such a quintessential G characteristic. Yep, the G63 drinks good old petrol. Not just any petrol though, it needs high performance fuel. The G63 100-litre tank, if you're filling XP 100, which costs 160 rupees a litre, a full tank would set you back 16,000 rupees. Though I'm not sure people who buy this car really care about the cost of fuel. Which brings me to the G580. It's got a massive 116 kilowatt hour battery, and it can take up to 45 minutes to charge from 10 to 90%. But that's only if you find a fast enough charger, a 200 kilowatt charger. Slower chargers, say a 22 kilowatt charger at home, will take a long time. It'll take over 9 hours. But that said, this is going to teach you how to slow down a little bit in life, how to enjoy life, take a chill pill, relax on your road trips maybe. And it's also going to teach you how to enjoy gas station coffee. The upside of all of this is that this costs next to nothing to run, especially when put in front of the G63. I don't know if this really matters to people who are buying G-Wagons, but it definitely is a pro. Conclusion, if you're in a hurry, get the G63. But why do you need to be in a hurry if you have a G-Wagon? For this section, you're going to want to put your headphones in. I'm going to stop saying things, let the car do the talking. plug yourselves in. And now we're going to drive. Mic, exactly where you'd normally hear it. Let's go. That V8 is something else. Now let's head into the G580 and see what it's got. But the G580, it does have one trick up its sleeve. It's called G-Roar. It's a setting in the G-Class's menu which basically allows you to simulate the growl of an engine. You go into settings and you tap G-Roar sound experience. Car comes to life. Let's hear what it sounds like. So yeah, that is G-Roar. It's a nice rumbly growl that has been engineered into this car. Sounds very V8-like, obviously not a V8, but I must say it sounds natural and it's definitely one of the better electric car sounds out there. Not too hard to figure out which one wins this test. To answer that question, well, we're going to put them side by side, and the conclusion is that they both look like G-Wagons. They're both iconic, the shape is unmistakable, and they're both going to command massive presence no matter where you go. But there are some differences between the two. To start with, the G63, it gets a more aggressive face. You've got the Panamericana grille, you've got more aggressive bumpers. This gets a more traditional SUV face. The G63 also sits lower than this. That's 229 mm of ground clearance. This one gets 250 mm. It gets bigger wheels, 22s. This one gets 20s. That has lower profile tires, obviously a little more sporty. This has higher profile tires, a little more suited to mixed conditions that you're probably going to drive it in. The ground clearance is actually not affected by the battery. If you look underneath this car, you'll see a big battery pack, but it still has higher ground clearance. And if you look underneath that car, you'll see exhaust tips, which are really cool. It has those side-mounted exhausts, again an iconic G-Wagon trait, which is unmistakable. The G580 also has a few tweaks to aerodynamics to make it cut through the air a little bit better and hopefully extend range. One of them is this bonnet and how it's profiled. That is a lot flatter. This has a bit of a hump in it to sort of deflect and let the air flow better. The fenders are also slightly different. This one is a little more toned and it has vents in the rear fender to allow for better airflow. Which one looks better is a very difficult question to answer. Because this is taller, it actually looks like it has a little more presence, but this looks more angry, more aggressive, and a little more muscular. There's no answering this question. Both of them look great. Both of them win this test. Honestly, how do you make sense of a test like this? The past, it's loud, it's raw, it's full of character. The future, it's clean, it's sharp, it's surprisingly capable. Both these cars come from different eras, but they share the same legacy. They're both G-classes and they have that legendary status. Which brings me back to my original question now. Which of these two should you be picking? There's only one correct answer. Whichever one you can get an allocation for.